Welcome to the Franchise Show, Dominique.
Thank you for having me.
Look, franchises are making headlines for all the wrong reasons at the moment. Now, I understand they are regulated by the ACCC and the Fair Work Ombudsman. What's happening? Why are we seeing names like Domino's, 7-Eleven, Caltex, undermining really the credibility of the industry? What are your thoughts?
In these particular cases, what has occurred is that the Ombudsman has found more significant non-compliance issues, and typically what they do is seek to join the large brand associated with that. What we have seen is certainly big brands hitting the headlines, which I think really unfortunately has done some damage to franchising, but ultimately non-compliance is certainly not endemic throughout franchising, and it's not reflective of the industry.
So is it a business plan that's wrong? Is it the model that's wrong that's forcing people to actually do this because they have to survive?
If a brand really is focused on sales as opposed to profit, or they're pushing out, certain prices or issues in their supply chain or costs onto the franchisee, of course there's going to be ramifications around that. But overall, and what we've seen through those cases is most of the time the franchisor is unaware because the franchisee is running their business. Lots of small businesses are doing it tough, and how you choose to operate in a tough environment is really a matter for the person in that business. And certainly not everybody chooses to underpay their workers or not be compliant, but it's about understanding when you're doing the right thing and how to do the right thing in the most cost-effective way, and that's what the franchisor is really there to help you with.
Do you think greater regulation or compliance would help the industry?
Look, right now under the Fair Work Act there are provisions that mean that if a franchisor is in a situation where they understand there is non-compliance, if it can be proven that they knew about that and they did nothing about it, the Fair Work Ombudsman can join them to a matter. In the case of 7-Eleven, that didn't happen because they could not prove that the 7-Eleven brand itself or franchisor was aware of what was occurring within individual businesses. And as I understand it, that's exactly the same with Caltex and potentially with Domino's as well. So right now we already have that framework in place, and it's something that can be utilised by the regulator.
Okay, the proposed changes, your thoughts on that? Do you think they're there to protect the lowest income earners, to protect the workers?
Look, I have some real difficulties with the proposed changes to the Fair Work Act, and I understand that they are really proposed to protect the vulnerable worker, but I think what the government has failed to recognise is what about the vulnerable franchisee. They're talking about making sure that reasonable steps are taken by the franchisor to ensure that the franchisee is compliant, but those reasonable steps are quite exorbitant in terms of cost. And
so who pays for those costs? Because it could be a case you've got a good franchisee doing their job, another one where they've had to step in and help. You're saying that they will have big implications as far as the cost of implementing this and the cost of that management. Then it's going to go somewhere. Who is paying for this then? Who will pay for it?
It's really going to depend on the franchisor itself and what steps they choose to take and how they decide to fund it. But I think it would be very difficult to expect a franchisor to wear the entire cost of these reasonable steps and not pass some of that on to the franchisee. And I think given the circumstances and given the economy, how difficult people are doing it at the moment, I think this could be really detrimental to small business.
So sitting back, if I'm about to jump in and buy a franchise, it's not good news?
It may be good news in the right circumstances. So it will mean that you'll get added support as a franchisee, and if you're new to business, this will be a very good thing because the franchisor will wear some of the responsibility around your requirements under the Fair Work Act, which is a very complex piece of legislation. On the offside to that, your costs could increase. It's definitely a possibility. And in addition to that, you might lose some of the control over what you used to have with your employees and how you would employ them, because ultimately now your franchisor is going to wear some of the risks if you get it wrong. And now that's good for the brand. It also means that hopefully we'll see a reduction in any brand damage that is done to franchising.
What would you like to see then?
Ultimately, we would like to see a model in which there are higher penalties for people that do the wrong thing in situations of vulnerable workers, and we would like to see those penalties dedicated back into business to educate them about what compliance looks like and to make compliance easier for them. We would also like to see the modern awards to be simplified, because right now they're incredibly complex, and if you are a small business owner and you don't have the luxury of an employer association or a franchisor to guide you through it, that can be very, very difficult. And I think that government really has an obligation to assist small business to flourish as opposed to placing them under more red tape.
Dominique, thank you so much for your time, and I guess it's a case of watch this space.
Thank you for having me.